Good afternoon. This is Deborah Murphy coming to you from the Organization Development Network of Chicago. And this is the third in our series of events that are recommendations for our members, different resources. In this case, a series called What Are You Reading? I'd like to introduce Dr. Jerry Bell. Jerry is a member of our related organization, the Kodak organization, and he's also has his own business. You've seen the background there, JBJ Business Group, and he has a PhD in organization development from Benedictine. And before that, he's had various kind of interesting experiences flying helicopters and various operational roles in the Army, but decades worth of experience in organizational change, organizational leadership. And he's here today to talk with us about Galbraith's designing dynamic organizations. Welcome, Jerry. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, thank you, Deborah. I'm a former medic. West Point graduate, got about 20 years of OD experience, and currently helping agencies become more effective and efficient using a lot of these OD frameworks.
Terrific. Well, welcome, and we're delighted to have this conversation this afternoon. And when we were talking about resources that our colleagues in the OD network locally might be interested in, you mentioned Galbraith's book. Tell us a little bit about why that book and why that's of interest to you.
So as a new facilitator or practitioner, I like Galbraith. One, it was referred to me by a colleague of mine, Bill Anderson. Mm-hmm. I was asking him, what's a good framework to follow that has good tools that I can use to help me go through the intervention? And he mentioned that as a great resource. So what's nice about Galbraith, the designing organizations, is it gives you tools that you can use. It actually gives you case studies that you can review with your client to help with the onboarding, and it even gives you the surveys as a point of reference that you can either use right out of the box or you can modify to get the data that you need to support your intervention decisions. So yeah, I'm more of a follow the yellow brick road.
Yeah, follow the recipe kind of guy rather than shooting from the hip. And how did you use it? Did you use it with a client or in an academic problem you were trying to solve?
Absolutely. So we've worked with small businesses and large. So I used this framework with a small engineering company. I've also used it with a small construction company, and or even as large as we did an intervention with a 200 person division of the VA, where we had to do some gap analysis. So definitely it's a good way to have the right conversations and have it structured properly so you can engage with your client.
So tell us about the model.
Can I share my screen?
I think so.
So I'll tell a story, and you'll understand. So this is my first capability briefing, and so one of the things you wanted me to share was also a tool.
Yep.
When you're a practitioner, you're trying to sell your business. You want to talk about pain points. Yep. that can drive the conversation towards getting work. So this was my original presentation, and it talked about who we were, our capabilities. It was very academic, and I wasn't getting the information I needed for my clients because they were really trying to understand what I was trying to tell them. So transform that to what we currently do now. So now a different presentation. We lead in with some questions that we want to frame in respect to change, organization design. And then I actually pulled straight out of the book, and then we talk about what does that OD process look like? So this right here is a 5-star model. Talks about strategy, structure. So the visual is really nice. And then I typically say, hey, when you change your people practices and that impacts either your structure or lateral capabilities. So it's more of a cyclical process. So, and then I go into, what are different variables and what do they cause if you don't have them? So this slide here really connects well with the client straight out of the book. And they get this. So when you talk about confusion,
Okay.
we talk about low performance, this connects well with them. And then I even modified this.
So are you saying that if someone is telling you about a problem of, like confusion within a group or low performance in a group, that the Galbraith model can almost point to where the root cause of those issues might lie in people practices or strategy in those two examples? Is that how that's used?
Yes, or even better, when we talk about this, they can see it in their own organization and they start nodding their heads. Yeah, we definitely see how not having strategy is causing confusions. Once you can get to that point where they agree that there's a challenge, now we can talk about potential solutions where we can move into, getting work. And then that is the difficult part is when you're talking to these potential clients, you have to agree that there is a challenge.
Okay.
So
without sort of telling us what the organization, the names of the organizations, can you give us an example of how applying that framework then highlighted what their issue was?
Absolutely. So here's an example. We worked with a small engineering company.
Okay.
And the challenge they had there was they were having some time management and work process issues. And we did a org redesign, did a first phase of a gap analysis. And then we were able to determine the starting point, identify some success indicators. And then we introduced an assessment. Here's another. So yeah, and again, other workforce challenges with another small business.
Mm-hmm.
We leveraged the OD 5-star model, and we were able to do that there. And then with the VA, this was a post-implementation support.
Okay.
And we did some stakeholder analysis to define the current state and the desired state. And that's where I used the 5-star model. That's part of that project there. That was a 200-employee agency.
So Galbraith and his fellow authors, they promote doing that current state analysis, right? Current state analysis using that framework, like what are the strategies, what are the processes, what are the people practices, et cetera. Using that as the framework for your diagnosis. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am. Yep. So, and in the book, they even give you the questions to ask. They give you case studies. So I shared those case studies with my clients. So then we had a conversation around what they got out of the case study before we started doing the assessments. And what that did was it enabled me to get some more stakeholder awareness and engagement from that perspective. So the leadership buy-in was great. And then they understood why we were doing what we were doing.
And so tell me about the conversation when this book was suggested to you as a resource. What did your colleague suggest that was so useful?
So coming out of the military, we did OD work, but we didn't call it OD work, right? So it was more, how do I transition from being an internal doer to now managing a process where I'm actually helping a client deal with these projects, leveraging a framework.
Okay.
That was the main reason why I called Dr. Anderson. Is I wanted to find a framework that minimized the risk of me not being successful in the engagement.
Terrific. And so it was really a from a practitioner's point of view, as much as any one of the, academic frameworks that we might have studied over the years.
Absolutely. So yeah, this is definitely a practitioner perspective. It gives you the how, it gives you the why, and it gives you the what.
So in the book, did the authors, did they point to any, academic, theoretical background, or were they pretty much focused on application?
Oh, absolutely. So they definitely use theory to practice.
Oh, okay.
So they do reference their theory that they're basing their model off of. So if you
gurus from the past, yeah.
Right.
Who do they reference?
Well, my experience is a lot of people outside of they understand the 5-star model. So when I present it, they say, "Oh, well, I'm aware of that model because either they're OD students or grads."
Mm-hmm.
So it's got a good name out there already. So people are familiar with Galbraith and the 5-star model.
And so you mentioned that it's pretty it's pretty effective. Are there other insights out of the book that make you recommend it?
I would say personally, this is more initially when I'm engaging with my client, I ask them a question and say, there's 2 scenarios of a type of consultant, right? So one of them is you want to change something, but you need someone to come in and do it for you.
Mm.
And the other one is you need change, but you also need your people as part of that process.
Okay.
And I think once I get understanding of that differentiator, right, then that helps me understand that if they're looking for someone to come in and bring their team together and find out what the solutions are from their perspective, and then do some kind of prototyping through a committee, and then develop the details from that framework, this is definitely a great tool for that. If they're looking for someone, maybe they've got some kind of venture capitalist that's getting ready to potentially buy them, and they need to find some quick wins. This isn't for them. So this is more of a long-term. It does take a governance structure, but the book shows you how to develop that.
Oh.
So that, I think that's where, and I honestly, when I speak with a client, I have that conversation, and if they're looking for the latter, someone to come in and say, "Hey, I've worked with McKesson, and we've done this for 100 companies, and these are the best practices, and we're going to come in and develop it for you." I'm not their guy. So that would be my advice on this as a framework. Is definitely something that it's going to be a collaborative process.
Rules of engagement with that client and how they're going to use that even beyond your consultation. Then it sounds like not just come in, do something to them and leave.
Right. Yeah. So we're going to develop that process and structure so that when we leave, it's self-sufficient. And for some that may not be a good business model, but for me, I really want to share those tactics and techniques where the business can be more self-sufficient.
I think all of our gurus from Appreciative Inquiry and Edgar Schein and Peter Block and so forth would probably all agree that that's an approach that has the most effective outcomes, is that engagement and getting the right people in the room, right? So think about our audience today, and if you could picture that some subset of them are just starting on their OD journey, they're just starting on their academic or their professional journey. How would you position this book for them? How would they find it useful?
So I would say be comfortable with trusting the process
Mm-hmm.
and have a point of reference for some of your questions as you're maybe engaging with your professional support system.
Mm-hmm.
And then using the tools and honestly, even being transparent of where your tools are coming from. That way there may be concern about capability.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then if you explain here's a framework that we're leveraging and it's produced great results, then it's not about you as the consultant, it's about how do we engage with the client to help them leverage a process. So that takes a lot of the pressure off for you as the practitioner.
That's great advice. Now, two other types of audiences. Some subset of our audience today will be our colleagues who are internal consultants, and then there's some subset that will be external consultants. What would be your advice for them on how to use the tools from the book that we're talking about today? So I would imagine that internal consultants are that there's elements of power and influence internally, and external clients might external consultants might be looking to even use this process within their own business, their own small solo entrepreneurship.
Right. So the book is designed not only it's multiple stakeholders, so even down to the point of a manager. So it's very applicable to your question.
Okay.
So yeah, I would say part of that is assessing the initial readiness of that organization to make sure, does it make sense? Are they ready? What's their change capacity?
Mm-hmm.
And if they're not, then let's do some due diligence to get them up to the speed where we can start developing that governance. Doing a stakeholder analysis, so make sure the right people are involved in the right discussions, and then having a point of reference to supported by data, so that we can have a conversation where there may not be some synergies. And that's what some of the tools allow you to do. Great. So that you can get the leadership ready, they understand why we're doing this, and then now you can have the right strategy and resources to support the full intervention.
And how about for solo entrepreneurs? How have you used it in the operation of JPJ, for instance?
Yeah, so simply it helps me. So it doesn't tell you everything to do. So there's other aspects of,
not that big.
Right. So there's things that it allows you to be creative. You can implement or integrate technology to help with scheduling or how do you administer the surveys. If you want to keep it low tech or high tech. What else? I literally purchase a book and give it to the client, and then we go through the modules together, so that we have a point of reference to have a conversation. And if I'm when I build a team, I have a framework that we can all delegate the responsibility and roles, and we all know what to do and why. So it helps me manage that internal, my internal business on supporting this potential project.
That's interesting, because one of our other interviewees, Mark Kinnick, mentioned the E-Myth and the E-Myth Revisited as books that he was recommending and talking about in this forum. And in that, the suggestion was that entrepreneurs ought to sort of really lay out a strategy and lay out all of the jobs, whether or not there's more than one person in that organization to do those jobs, to lay it out just so that there's clarity. And it sounds like you're doing that same sort of a thing with this model to get that done.
Yeah, so it gives you the flexibility, and then you don't have to ask all the questions or even It's not like an assessment where it's valid, so you have to ask it exactly the same way. It just gives you a point of reference, so you can adapt it based on your experience or the client's needs. So you basically don't have to start from scratch. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
So have you compared the models in this book with others that might be similar, whether they were from like a GE quality practices or Kaplan's business strategy maps and things like that? Do you see some synergy there between the STAR model and some of the other?
Absolutely. There's other similar models, but they're all you're getting an understanding of the current state and the desired state, and then what's the gap, and then once you understand what the gap is, then how do you fill it? That's basically what most of the models are saying. The difference is how do we get to those different endpoints? That's what the different models have. And some are more academic and some are more user-friendly. So.
And but the key point for me too was how they're interrelated, like making a change in one without sort of the you understanding the impacts on some of the other points of the STAR in his model or other categories of strategy is foolish without understanding and making sure that you're looking at all the impacts. So I thought that would be key.
Or depending on your who your end client is. So the VA, they had a staff of PhDs. So in that situation, I was speaking more academic because it was in their language. But when I'm talking to a small business of 20 people, I'm trying to keep it simple. They understand strategy and turnover. So I'm not really worried about the theory. I'm just trying to make sure it's consistent with, they understand I can get to a point where we're talking about a return on investment.
Terrific. So what else should we know about this book?
I guess you can buy it on Amazon, Kindle, and hard copy. So
yes, you can.
Yeah. So I think for me that's important because I don't like carrying a lot of books around, so I like Kindle. And then I don't have to wait for it, so I can download it. So I don't know if that's helpful. But it's pretty old. I mean, it's been around since I think the 90s.
Yeah, so so this version of it was 2002, but I'm sure that it was being used because that STAR model has been, sort of ingrained in a lot of our experiences without even referencing to exactly, who published it initially.
Yeah, and then once you start off, you can tweak it and make it your own. Then nobody needs to know it's a STAR model. You can put your own salsa to it, if that's a good word. Your spice. So hopefully that's helpful. Yep.
It's certainly helpful to me. I hope it's been helpful to our audience today of Organization Development Network and our CODIC colleagues as well. I want to say thank you to Dr. Jerry Bell for your participation today, and look forward to further conversations with our group about, hey, what are you reading? Today's book was Jay Galbraith, Diane Downey, and Amy Kates is Designing Dynamic Organizations. Go on and get a copy, whether it's Kindle or hard copy.
All right, thank you.